So quickly summing up my thoughts before I get more in depth, I saw three distinct genres of horror that we really saw in the 2 seasons of Stranger Things. Season 1, the Demogorgon, was a predator, reminded you a lot of abductions and unsolved mysteries. You had a Pennywise vibe for sure, and it was definitely supernatural and otherworldly, but of all the creatures we saw, I felt that was the most human. You saw these elements of hunting and stalking prey, and you could see relations to that in human beings in the animal kingdom. Now, moving to season 2, we get this epic War of the Worlds, Lovecraftian, and I'll get into that term more later. The Mind Flayer, as it's called, you get the sense of epic scale and apocalyptic, world-ending destruction. You do get slight Godzilla vibes in the whole kaiju genre in general. And the last creature I'll talk about is the Demodogs. There's debate over whether these are different at all from the original Demogorgon. I think that they are very different, and maybe not in actual technical origin, but as far as the vibe and the way the show portrays them and the kind of horror that it evokes, I think they are very different, and that's the last element I'll talk about. Now with these, I got a real Jurassic Park vibe in the sense of like Outbreak and Contagion and these beasts being unleashed upon the world, or even the movie Gremlins, or some of the Alien movies, Eight-Legged Freaks, just this idea of these horrible beasts and demons being unleashed upon a small town, and you've got to band together and find a way to defeat them. Very different than the original, I found. And now before I talk about these creatures more in depth, I feel that one of the reasons the second season was a bit weaker than the first was the pairing of this small town suburbia with these fears of missing children, unsolved mystery, child predators, and that unique horror that I'm going to talk about in the first creature. I feel that that was lost a bit when they moved to season 2, and the stakes were bigger and the scale was bigger, and now it became apocalyptic and world-ending and this mass outbreak of all these creatures. I feel like it just didn't quite pair as well with the setting. For me, the mass-scale destruction, that's just for me more of a big city thing. It's not really a small town thing. And the idea of these creatures being released and you have to defeat them, sometimes that works in small towns, but I feel like, I don't know, it's more of a laboratory thing. And they did have it occur in a laboratory at some point, this kind of research facility, but I just felt like the unique, special vibe of Stranger Things, it paired best with the first genre of horror. Okay, so season 1, the original Demogorgon, this predator lurking in the shadows, reminded me a lot of the monster from Pan's Labyrinth, the one with the eyeballs on its hands. Also, the movie Jaws was a big inspiration as this kind of perfect being, this perfect killing machine. Reminds you a bit of Alien as this perfect predator. And then the flower petal face revealing all these teeth. Very similar to Jaws. Also kind of reminds you, there were these monsters in this very funny movie Tremors that came out. Not a lot of people saw it. It's kind of before everybody's time. And then also this monster off the X-Files. A lot of people got hints of that. Now, if you look, it has human hands, and things like it being incensed by blood and feeding off blood, these are animal characteristics. So in season 2, like I say, the evil, in some sense, it got more otherworldly and just not understandable at all, completely mysterious and alien to us. In this, again, it was supernatural, it was otherworldly, coming from another dimension, but there were those elements that made it somewhat relatable, and you could see signs of it in other predators that we see in our world, and some people are going to think that's more scary, some people are going to think it's less. And great name, by the way, Demogorgon, demon who must not be named, demon prince. Now, if you look at the word, it's a combination of demigod and gorgon. Now, gorgon, that's Medusa, turns you to stone. The Versace logo, I'm just watching the assassination of Giovanni Versace right now, actually. And this was by far my favorite Stranger Things monster. Something about the Venus flytrap head and the white skin, the ghostly white skin. I got a Silent Hill vibe, and like I say, this whole idea of missing children and abductions, it paired really well with season 1, where we had the secret experiments and the kids being kind of abducted and going missing that way as well. But nonetheless, we moved to season 2, and now we get the Mind Flayer. Now, rather than a predator stalking individual small stakes prey, we now get to an intergalactic, interdimensional conqueror. This world destroyer, this leviathan, this behemoth, and you get this sense of just mass destruction, almost like a catastrophe, a natural disaster, a storm. And actually, its tentacles are actually whirling clouds. Now, most times we see it, it appears with the storm clouds and the lightning, and at certain times it seems almost indistinguishable from the storm that it's taking part in. And this is where the Lovecraft and the Cthulhu element comes in. It's just this cosmic epic scale destruction that we can't even begin to comprehend its motives. And we do get a very brief explanation of its motives. It views all other life as inferior and wants to subjugate all the other realms. Now there's different names for it. We get Shadow Monster, Mind Flayer, and Thessalhydra. And we learn that it is this kind of hive intelligence using these Demodogs as its kind of soldiers, and it's the general leading the charge. Now, imagery like the spider imagery and the tentacle octopus imagery really drives it home as this kind of mastermind spreading this evil dark force throughout the world far and wide. And again, you compare it to the original Demogorgon locking onto a single prey, tracking it, enjoying a single kill, to now having an almost infinite number of tentacles and just spreading death and destruction far and wide in every direction. And I will say what makes the Mind Flayer distinct from other alien invading forces, like you think of War of the Worlds, is this kind of psychic element that sometimes, rather than this, or distinguishes it from something like Godzilla, rather than this rampaging force of destruction, it feels more like this insidious force seeping a kind of more ethereal darkness rather than just carnage. The last thing I'll say to go with this whole tentacles, tendrils, and spider legs that I think was pretty hyped up, when you go to the upside down and you're trapped in this gunk, and then this these tentacles, they trap you there. It reminded me a lot of being trapped in a spider web, waiting in these caves for a spider to get you, like Lord of the Rings, the third one, Return of the King. I got that kind of horror, again, not from the Mind Flayer itself, but being trapped in the upside down. And now the last creature, the season 2 Demogorgons, or as they're sometimes called, Demodogs. Now, they've lost a lot of what I think is the human characteristics of the Demogorgon that we saw in season 1. They're almost all quadrupedal, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word, it means on all fours, and they remind you a lot of lizards, velociraptors even. Now, they still had the vagina pedal mouths, that was pretty distinctive, but they were just very different, and they seemed almost like black hellhounds at some point. They reminded you a lot of the dogs off Resident Evil, or even I Am Legend. And when they flare their mouths like they do, it reminds you a lot of the xenomorphs or the facehuggers from the Alien movies. And look, I'm going to end the video here because it's getting long. I just feel that in some ways, I really like that they went with these different kinds of horror and they went in a different direction, tried to do something different from the first season. But nonetheless, I feel like it didn't quite work as well. So I'm not saying it was a bad thing that they did it. I do like that they explored different things. And you almost got a Poltergeist vibe at the very end, kind of like Poltergeist mixed with Resident Evil, when he has the assault rifle and he's shooting these Demodogs, and then she's trying to close the portal and there's the energy force. It reminded you a lot of this mix of Poltergeist and Resident Evil, which again, not a bad thing that they tried to do something different, but I don't think it quite worked as well as season 1.